Most men make the same mistake. When they meet a woman, they ask about her past, her exes, her heartbreaks. And the moment you ask, she starts editing the story. Not because she's lying, but because people protect themselves. What you get is the polished version she wants you to see. But here's the truth, you don't need to ask. Her past is already written in her habits, reactions, and silences. If you know how to read the signs, you'll see more than she ever admits. In this video, I'll show you exactly how to uncover her history without asking a single question. Ready? Let's start with the first clue, her relationship with attention. One of the clearest ways to understand a woman's past is to observe how she responds to attention, especially from men. This is not just about how she reacts when you compliment her, but about the subtle ways she moves through the world. Watch how she walks into a room, how she carries herself on social media, how she reacts when the spotlight is on her. Some women remain calm, grounded, and almost indifferent, as if being noticed is nothing new. Others light up instantly, as though being seen is the only thing that makes them feel alive. That difference often points to her history. A woman who grew up neglected or who felt invisible in a past relationship learns to measure her worth by how much attention she received. For her, validation becomes oxygen. And every compliment is not just nice, it's necessary. This is why you'll sometimes hear a woman constantly mention her DMs, or brag about how men at the gym flirted with her, or laugh about how guys won't leave her alone. On the surface, it might sound playful, but beneath that humor is a clue. It shows that attention is not casual fun, it is fuel. And here's the danger. If her sense of self-worth is built on that external validation, then when the attention from you slows down, she might unconsciously start searching for it elsewhere. That doesn't always mean betrayal. It can be an emotional addiction she doesn't even realize she has. The real question you should ask yourself is not how much attention she gets, but why she needs it. Does she simply enjoy admiration? Or does she depend on it to feel whole? That one distinction tells you more about her past than any polished story she could ever share. And once you see that clearly, the next step is to pay attention to something even more revealing, the way she talks about other women. Another way a woman unconsciously reveals her past is in how she talks about other women. Pay attention when she mentions her friends, her coworkers, or even complete strangers she barely knows. The tone matters more than the words. A woman who speaks with warmth, kindness, and support often carries peace within herself. But a woman whose sentences are laced with sarcasm, judgment, or constant criticism is showing you something deeper. If every female she brings up is described as fake, dramatic, or untrustworthy, that isn't just her being opinionated, it's a reflection of unresolved wounds. A woman who constantly says other girls are flirty or disloyal may have been cheated on before. One who mocks others' success may be replaying her own insecurities. And when she casually says she doesn't get along with women, that's rarely independence. It's often the result of betrayal, rivalry, or broken friendships that taught her to protect herself by competing instead of trusting. These patterns are more than gossip. They are echoes of old pain resurfacing in everyday conversation. The truth is simple: when someone is at peace with themselves, they can respect and celebrate others. When they are not, every mention of another woman becomes a mirror reflecting hidden battles. So while she may never openly tell you about the heartbreaks or rivalries that shaped her, her words about other women carry that history in plain sight. Listen closely, because in the background of every story, she is telling you her own. And once you hear those echoes, you'll be ready for the next and even sharper test: how she reacts when conflict arises. If you really want to understand a woman's past, don't just watch her when everything is going smoothly. Watch her when things go wrong. Conflict is one of the fastest ways to bring history back to the surface. It doesn't have to be a screaming match or a dramatic breakup scene. It can be as simple as a last-minute change of plans, a forgotten detail, or a moment when she feels ignored. Pay attention to how she responds in those small cracks of daily life. Does she shut down and go silent, withdrawing into herself as though speaking up might cost her something? That often points to a past where showing emotion led to rejection or punishment. Or does she lash out quickly, blame, and try to make you feel guilty? That's usually the armor of someone who once made herself vulnerable and paid the price for it. The way she handles conflict is rarely about you in the moment, it is about the way she learned to survive. These are emotional reflexes born long before you entered the picture. A woman who was abandoned may live in constant fear of being left again. So every disagreement feels like the beginning of the end. Another who was betrayed may assume bad intentions even when none exist. The important thing to see is that conflict doesn't create new stories. It reveals old ones. And the man who notices these patterns can decide whether he is willing to walk with her through them, or whether he is about to inherit scars that are not his own. Either way, watching how she fights tells you far more about her past than anything she could ever put into words. And once you've seen that clearly, you can move to the next hidden sign, the subtle clues inside her relationship timeline. You don't need to directly ask a woman about her last relationship to figure out her timeline, because the truth is hidden in the way she casually speaks. Every story she tells leaves small clues if you pay attention. Notice the pronouns she uses. When she says something like, "I used to love that little cafe. We went there all the time." That tiny word, "we," is rarely about a friend. It is a breadcrumb pointing to someone she shared her life with, whether she admits it or not. Listen to how often she anchors events in time. If she says, "That was about 2 years ago," she is unconsciously giving you a clear marker. But if she avoids time altogether, skips over details, or speaks in vague terms, it may mean the memory is still too raw to face directly. The words she chooses around transition points matter too. When she says, "After everything fell apart," or "I had to rebuild myself," those are not just casual phrases. They are quiet signals of heartbreak and recovery. The important thing is not to interrogate her, because direct questions will only bring rehearsed answers. Instead, notice the pattern in her language, because people reveal more when they are relaxed and not trying to perform. Sometimes her silence about a period in her life is louder than any story she could tell. If you learn to hear both what is said and what is missing, you will map out her emotional timeline without a single question. And once you see that map, the next sign becomes even more revealing what she really thinks about men as a whole. One of the clearest ways to see a woman's past is by noticing how she talks about men in general, not just how she talks about you, but how she describes exes, male friends, or even strangers she sees on TV. If her tone is light, neutral, or even playful, it suggests balance. But if it is sharp, bitter, or dripping with cynicism, it carries history. A woman who constantly jokes that men are the worst may sound casual, but if the joke always has a sting, it usually comes from lived experience. Someone made her feel that way before, maybe more than once. Her patterns of trust, or the lack of it, are written into these small comments. If she assumes men are liars, cheaters, or unreliable, that belief didn't come from books or movies, it came from wounds she endured. And here's the reality: even if she's warm, affectionate, and seems to enjoy you, now, those beliefs don't vanish overnight. They live in the background and shape how she will react when stress arrives. She may become suspicious when you're quiet, or expect you to leave before you ever thought about leaving. Those aren't random mood swings. They are memories disguised as reactions. The key is not to judge her for having those scars, but to recognize them for what they are, reflections of her past trust history. Seeing this clearly lets you decide whether you're entering a new relationship or stepping into someone else's damage loop. And once you've understood how her view of men reveals her past, the next sign digs even deeper, how she talks about her own family. If you really want to understand how a woman forms emotional bonds, listen carefully to how she talks about her family, especially her parents. You don't need to press for dramatic confessions, because her tone already carries the truth. When she mentions her father, does her voice hold warmth, distance, bitterness, or indifference? A casual shrug or a dismissive, whatever, can reveal more than a long story. because indifference often hides disappointment that has been buried for years. Her relationship with her father in particular creates a blueprint for how she views men: trust and emotional safety. If she had to earn love growing up, she might feel she always has to prove herself in relationships. If affection was inconsistent, warm one day and cold the next, she may unconsciously expect the same from you. On the other hand, if her home was stable and nurturing, that foundation will show in her ability to stay calm, to handle conflict, and to express needs clearly. Her family dynamic is like an operating system running in the background of her emotional world. It doesn't shout, but it influences everything. Notice the way she reacts when talking about holidays, how she describes her mother, or whether family time makes her roll her eyes or light up. These are not just anecdotes, they are access points into her emotional programming. And the truth is, most people never fully outgrow the emotional language they learned at home. If you want to see how she'll love you, start by noticing how she learned to love in her family. And once you see that, the next clue is even sharper. Watch what makes her emotional and what doesn't. There is something deeply revealing about what makes a woman emotional, and just as important, what does not. You are not only looking for tears or dramatic breakdowns, but for those subtle shifts when something touches her unexpectedly. Maybe it is a movie scene about abandonment that makes her go quiet, or a song about betrayal she always skips, or even something simple like being left out of a group invite that makes her react strongly. These responses are not random. They are emotional footprints, traces of past experiences that still live inside her. People rarely overreact without history. And those intense reactions often say, this has happened before. This hurt once. And maybe it still hurts now. On the other hand, some women appear completely unaffected by things that would shake most people. They seem cold when others are vulnerable, or brush off pain as if it means nothing. That detachment can look like strength, but often it is armor built too early. These extremes, whether heightened emotion or unusual numbness, are windows into her past. They tell you where she has been hurt, what she has survived, and what scars she may still carry. The key is to observe without judgment. You are not asking her to list her traumas. You are watching how the world touches her and how she responds. Those reactions trace back to chapters of her life you may never hear about directly. And once you learn to read them, you no longer need to ask questions, because her behavior is already giving you the answers. That leads to the final skill every man needs to master: choosing observation over interrogation. The smartest men don't interrogate. They observe. They don't bombard a woman with questions about her exes, her heartbreaks, or her childhood, because those answers will always be edited. Instead, they watch the small details she doesn't even realize she's showing. The way she flinches when plans change, the way she grows quiet when something feels too intimate, the way she lights up when praised for qualities deeper than her looks. These are not coincidences. They are emotional fingerprints. Observation is not about being cold or manipulative. It is about emotional literacy, the ability to read what is happening beneath the words anyone can ask. What happened in your last relationship, and get the highlight reel. But the man who truly pays attention already knows, because her behavior has given him the unfiltered story. This doesn't mean you should sit in silence and analyze her like a puzzle. It means you should cultivate awareness, a calm presence that allows her real self to show without pressure. People reveal the truth most clearly when they are not trying to. When you rely on words alone, you often buy into the story she tells herself to survive. But when you rely on observation, you see the woman beneath the story, the one who may still be hurting, the one who may be ready to grow, or the one who isn't. Either way, observation gives you clarity, and clarity is power, because it saves you from walking blind into someone else's unresolved war. Once you understand that power, there is only one step left, bringing all the clues together in a conclusion that changes the way you see women forever. If you have followed this far, you are already ahead of most men. because you are no longer just hearing what a woman says, you are seeing who she really is. Once you understand how to read her patterns, her tone, her reactions, and her silences, your entire dating life shifts. You stop wasting time on highlight reels, on carefully edited stories designed to protect her image. You stop getting blindsided by truths that only appear months later. Instead, you connect with the real person in front of you, the one her behavior has been revealing all along. This doesn't make you judgmental. It makes you prepared. It gives you the ability to decide with clarity whether you are building with someone who has healed or stepping into the wreckage of someone still trapped in their past. That kind of awareness is rare, and it changes the way you carry yourself with women. It makes you calmer, sharper, more confident, because you no longer need to dig for answers. They are already there, waiting to be noticed. If even one part of this opened your eyes, leave a comment and tell me what hit hardest, because I read them all. And if you want to learn more of the deeper psychology most men miss, subscribe now, because in the next video, I'll break down the 5 types of emotional baggage you can spot within 10 minutes of meeting a woman and how to tell if she's healed or still hiding. Until then, keep your eyes open, your standards high, and your peace protected.